one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mayor Candelora.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Rose.
Here.
Counselor Angeloni.
Here.
Counselor Caprio. Counselor Duty.
Here.
Counselor Esposito. Counselor Fawnin.
Here.
Counselor Fucci.
Here.
Counselor Wentworth.
Here.
May I have a motion to approve the minutes from the previous December 13th, 2011?
Second.
Moved by Councilor Wentworth, seconded by Councilor Angeloni. Roll call.
Mayor Candelora.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Rose.
Yes.
Counselor Angeloni.
Yes.
Counselor Duty.
Abstain.
Counselor Fawnin.
Yes.
Counselor Fucci.
Abstain.
Counselor Wentworth.
Yes.
Water Pollution Control Authority agenda. Item 3, correspondence, citizen statements, unfinished business, discussion and action. New business, discussion and action regarding A, sewer connection fee.
Mr. Mayor, if I might, this is an issue that's been raised a few times by the Water Pollution Control Authority over the last few years. There have been, initially, 3+ years ago, there was a connection fee established, and then there was a modification of that to allow for some reduction. And then I believe there's been some further discussion about whether there's an opportunity to allow people who are subject to the connection fee, we're not talking about assessments, we're talking about the connection fees for sewers that were installed by others. And that would, whether those people who wish to connect could do so with a payment over time instead of a lump sum payment. And there are charges that are calculated by the town engineer on behalf of the Water Pollution Control Authority and the regulations as to what those connection fees will be for a particular unit. And they range all the way up to $12,300 for residential units. So I believe there was a wish from the council, or in this case the WPCA, to talk about the issue, or at least get it back on the agenda, back moving for further discussion about any further modifications that might be necessary relative to economic development or any other special needs that were out there.
Kurt, do you know the number for like commercial business?
Yeah, so with the special connection fees, the current regulations are currently $12,300 for non-age restricted residential unit, or $4,000 for non-residential or age restricted residential units for the first 5 units, and $2,000 per unit for each unit in excess of 5 units. And then the regulations, defines what a commercial unit is based on square footage. The various other units defined based on square footage. And that's written indicated. The special connection fee is required for regulation to be paid at the time of the issuance of a building permit or a sewer connection permit, depending on the circumstance.
Thank you, Kurt. Do we have a question?
I know when we were looking at this before, you had gotten some information from other towns. So say you're a business that already is connected to the sewer and you wanted to add on to your business. That $4,000 a unit, how many square feet of adding on to the business is a unit?
It depends on the commercial use, office use, or industrial use. Industrial use it's the larger square footage creates the unit. I think it's 3,000 square feet to 60 units. For the other ones, I think it's 1,000 square feet per unit. I just don't happen to have the whole regulations in terms of the numbers, but there's a sort of a sliding scale in terms of the type.
Okay.
The concept behind it is, like a commercial warehouse doesn't generate as much. That was the theory when they were originally developed back in the late 70s.
And then however many units you're assessed, like if this business was gonna add on, they would pay that many sewer user fee charges each year also.
Sewer user fees actually paid based upon water consumption, metered water consumption.
Okay.
So, and most of our commercial industrial ones, that's how they pay. There's a few up in the northern section, more or less, that don't have public water. But everybody else pays upon, pretty much the metered water consumption. And then, to be honest with you, the sewer use may not sort of track real tight with, the number of units. There may be a heavy water consumption on a particular business, and they may be assessed based upon one theory. The actual use may be more or less than it is what
Okay, I have heard from different engineers in the area that they've been approached by, people who wanted to do something in town, and when they get that fee handed to them, it's pretty much dead in the water. And I think that sitting here on the council, we've seen a couple of those, large projects come forward that we might have gotten somebody on the tax roll with, and then when the number is handed to them for what their sewer connection is, it's like we never hear from them again. So I don't know how we look at this again, or where we look at it, or if we can't do anything about it, but I would want to make sure that we're not more than the surrounding towns for the same, and I know you had all that information when we looked at this, but it, we were throwing out some pretty big numbers to some projects that would be paying pretty good tax dollars every year, so I wonder if maybe we're not biting our nose off to save our face, or, I don't know, but I just figured that we really need to discuss this again.
I can easily, reach out and find out, what a lot of municipalities, what they're charging for the, the various uses, and depending on how they can come back with additional information regarding what their numbers are on a connection fee basis. The answer is yes, we're on the high end, no doubt about it.
As a council, what are our options to do to change that if we find out that we're on the high side?
We set the rate,
Right, we can do whatever we want.
so,
Hold a public hearing and reset the rate.
All right.
We did it because the residential was so
so
low,
low, yeah.
and we didn't realize the backside of it was, the commercial was gonna jump so high. So, we have
Yeah,
to
I think
come,
you could- yeah, if you
have to
could
come
come
to
to-
some happy medium now.
Yep, I agree.
and we did make an adjustment on the commercial line.
Right.
Just exactly for that reason, because it was just, an enormous number that we're tagging on to any kind of commercial or such type use. So
Well, when we looked at it, we didn't figure there was gonna be 4 or 5 units added on to that one commercial section,
Right.
which kind of threw everything out of alignment.
Yeah, but I can certainly reach out, and, other towns, they have a published, they have a lot of information, report back, and then, try to shoot the next WPCA meeting to provide additional information. I can also check, the question is, when to pay it? See what other towns have done, is it a lump sum, or is it factored in? They may be doing that, but we can, reach out and find out what other people are doing. And then try to put it in a summary sheet.
I agree with Alan and everybody, because I think if you want to bring economic development into North Branford, I don't think you can start charging those high prices, because they're not going to come here. They'll go somewhere else where they can be cheaper. And I'm sure it is cheaper in other places, so I really would like you to check with some of the other towns and put a
Take a
packet
look at
together
it,
so we can
revisit
look
it.
at it again.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you, Kurt.
Next up.
Citizen statements, petitions. Regular town council agenda. Reports of committees, boards, and commissions.
Have any boards and commissions met during
Not
that?
since the last time.
That's why we have no reports. Right?
So we'll go down to the town manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll keep this fairly brief. We're still working on a couple of issues at NBIS. There's a permanent project building committee meeting next Monday, and we've had the building official and the fire marshal go through the building to look at issues related to certificate of occupancy type matters, means of egress, building leaks to some extent, HVAC system issues that they've been dealing with. And I think that went fairly well. We've had some cooperation from the mechanical contractor, but we're still waiting on them to come back and do some other things. Turner Construction is still on the job, more or less, handling some issues that have come up. We do have an issue with the main door that we've written to the architect at the instruction of the Permanent Project Building Committee to get a solution. We think we know what the solution is, and we're getting an estimate in the meantime on what the cost of that solution might be. So we are inching forward with some resolutions for the Permanent Project Building Committee. Likewise, on the Swycheck project, we've given over to the project team from Nafis and Young the design standards that we're looking for and the basic drawings and so forth. So I would anticipate in the next couple of weeks we'll be seeing some feedback and some budget estimates come back to them. And then when that's prepared, it'll come back and you'll see it on the council agenda. I'm not sure if it'll be the next council agenda, but certainly by the early February meeting, we look to have some update on where we are with the project. Stanley T. Williams School Renovation Project, Salomon and Associates, the architect / engineer for that project, should be working on finalizing an updated budget for the project. And also, we've been waiting to hear on steep funding for the second phase. The apparent final list came out from the governor's office this afternoon about 4 o'clock, and unfortunately, we were not on the list of funding under the steep project. There were some 50 communities plus that did receive funding, varying in amounts from $50,000 all the way up to $500,000. But unfortunately, we are not on that list. I did inform our legislative delegation of that, and there may be an outside chance that we'll still receive funding because not all of the money has been allocated, but I think this was the final announcement that the governor's office was producing today. At least it was billed as such. So I have a listing if anyone wants to see who did receive funding. So in the meantime, Solomon and Associates will be preparing an updated budget. Should have that in time for the next meeting of the council, and I will share that information to see if there's any gap in what the priorities are with us filling with funding from other sources to get the project underway. We did, in the report that I sent, we've had some concerns expressed on the Route 80 139 realignment project. This project is scheduled to go out to bid from Connecticut DOT on January 18th, so the plans and specifications are done. The concerns are expressed by the Little League, which has opening day ceremonies scheduled and closing day ceremonies scheduled for Wall Field. Kurt, on our behalf, sent that information up to the DOT project team, so at least they're aware that there may be some logistical issues that we'll have to work around. But it's still a little early. They have no they don't have a bid even on the street yet, so we're a little bit ahead of that curve. Also, and if you recall, when ConDOT was here to do the final presentation, the representatives from the North Branford Congregational Church had expressed some concerns about the town green area and their parking lot adjacent to the church on Church Street. There were some issues with trees. There was a major issue with drainage that they had some concerns about. So we have been trying to set up a meeting with Connecticut DOT over the holidays. It just didn't work out. But Kurt and I would like to go with them, with the Congregational Church folks, or have DOT come down to town so that at least they know that the town's in their corner representing them. If the council would like to do it another way and have DOT come here again, just let us know, and we could see if that's an opportunity. But just bear in mind that the project is fully designed and ready to go out to bid on January 18th. So I'm not sure how much we're going to affect, but it's the council's pleasure as to whether you want to try and have DOT come back here, or do you want Kurt and I to handle it on your behalf?
I think it's something you and Kurt could probably handle. I mean, they already showed us the design, they already have the design phase, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm okay with that.
The thing is, though, I mean, we all know that, you know, a very well-respected engineer is on board with the church, and that's Jonathan Bodwell. He raised concerns at that last meeting here that they didn't answer. And so now they've gone ahead and did what they wanted to do without answering his questions. So I would have no problem if we brought them back here, whether they've designed it or not. And, you know, I mean, we even had raised some concerns about their riprap on the side of the road, and they removed some of it, and they still had some of it. So if, you know, I don't know whether we want to do it here, or whether, you know, I don't know where we want to do it. I just know we want to do it. So, because, you know, Jonathan did bring up some valid points, and he has concerns with drainage and the grades that they're showing. So we've got a well-respected private sector engineer saying he disagrees with the state of Connecticut DOT engineer. So, you know, I don't know whether.
I think we need to bring them back here then.
I think we need to let them know that we are backing, or at least I'm gonna let them know that I'm backing what Jonathan says over what they say. So I don't know how you want to go about doing that,
We
but,
will invite them to the next town council meeting.
yeah, and see, let them,
And
Invite them and hope
strongly
they come.
suggest they be here, and, you know, we can do it then if they,
If they
if
show
for
up.
some reason they don't.
yeah, if they don't show up, we'll have to do it a different way.
Yeah.
With their revised drawings?
Right.
Good luck.
Well, I think they at least owe him, because.
Oh, they do owe them the answers.
They owe him an answer, and
But
from,
the
I talked
problem-
with him last week.
Problem with
They
the
just,
state is
like-
if they don't want to do it, they're not going to do it.
Right,
That's the whole problem, Al, you know that.
yeah. Okay.
Couple of things on storm follow-up. The brush pile, we've awarded a bid to Northeast Land Clearing for $8,000. It's the same company that did the first round for $6,000. So all of that is FEMA eligible. FEMA rep was in to look at our bid specs, approved everything. They have no issue with what we're doing. We're still submitting paperwork. Anthony, Fran, and the staff up at Public Works, Jerry, Krista, are all very competent and very aware now. Anthony's staff is very aware of how to comply with FEMA, and usually we're one of the first municipalities to submit our paperwork. So we also had a follow-up meeting on the Hurricane Irene emergency operations plan, and there'll be a report coming out in the next couple of weeks summarizing that. One of the basic conclusions is that we are all in need of additional training. That training will include representatives, or needs to include representatives of all the elected positions, Board of Education and Town Council, as well as senior staff and some of our operational staff. So we'll be working with our emergency management director to try and set aside some time, because everyone has a role during an emergency, and we all want to make sure that we're on the same page and we keep everyone informed and know what their responsibilities are. On the town side, on the staffing side, those training requirements will be mandatory. So we'll be going through the process and making sure that the next time, hopefully it won't be one, but the next time we have an emergency in town, we're better prepared, even though I think our response was as good as it could be. Also, just one last issue on the two issues. Thanks to our finance director, also our deputy fire chief, for doing the training for our CPR and AED for our town staff. And the last issue is that very shortly, if not currently, the Auger House up on Forest Road is now vacant. So we'll be finalizing that and getting it all cleaned up and deciding what the next step will be. And that is the end of my report. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Community events and presentations. This evening, Thomas Cariglio is here from the United Illuminating Company. I can invite you up.
Thank you. Good evening. As you know, back in August, we had a tropical storm Irene, or Hurricane Irene. And shortly after the storm, the United Illuminating Company set up a hurricane relief fund where we made funds available to all the towns in our service area. And we distributed funds to be used for equipment that first responders might need, such as generators, or equipment that police departments or the volunteer fire department might need, and or equipment or for other uses that a town might need funding for, disaster type of uses. So on behalf of the UI company, I have a check here for $2,500 to go toward the creation of a new EOC for the town of North Branford. I just want to present that to the mayor.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Citizen statements, petitions, and correspondence. Resignations and appointments. A, reappointment Clifford Powder to the Agricultural Committee, a term to expire 9/30/14.
I'll move that appointment.
I'll second it.
Moved by Councilor Duty, seconded by Councilor Fucy. Roll call.
Mayor Candelora?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Rose?
Yes.
Counselor Angeloni?
Yes.
Counselor Caprio?
Yes.
Counselor Duty?
Yes.
Counselor Fawnin?
Yes.
Counselor Fucci?
Yes.
Counselor Wentworth?
Yes.
Reappointment Joseph D. Francesco, Agricultural Committee, term to expire 9/30/13.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Angeloni, seconded by Councilor Fawnin. Roll call.
Mayor Candelora?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Rose?
Yes.
Counselor Angeloni?
Yes.
Counselor Caprio?
Yes.
Counselor Duty?
Yes.
Counselor Fawnin?
Yes.
Counselor Fucci?
Yes.
Counselor Wentworth?
Yes.
Reappointment Michael Duty to the Agricultural Committee, term to expire 9/30/15.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Fucy, seconded by Deputy Mayor Rose. Roll call.
Mayor Candelora?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Rose?
Yes.
Counselor Angeloni?
Yes.
Counselor Caprio?
Yes.
Counselor Duty?
I'll abstain.
Counselor Fawnin?
Yes.
Counselor Fucci?
Yes.
Counselor Wentworth?
Yes.
Reappointment Dudley Harrison, Agricultural Committee, term to expire 9/30/13.
I'll move that.
Second.
Mr. Mayor, this is an alternate position.
Okay.
The next two are alternates.
Moved by Councilor Fucy, seconded by Councilor Angeloni. Roll call.
Mayor Candelora?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Rose?
Yes.
Counselor Angeloni?
Yes.
Counselor Caprio?
Yes.
Counselor Duty?
Yes.
Counselor Fawnin?
Yes.
Counselor Fucci?
Yes.
Counselor Wentworth?
Yes.
Reappointment as alternate Harry Juvener, Agricultural Committee, term to expire 9/30/13.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councilor Wentworth, seconded by Councilor Angeloni. Roll call.
Mayor Candelora?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Rose?
Yes.
Counselor Angeloni?
Yes.
Counselor Caprio?
Yes.
Counselor Duty?
Yes.
Counselor Fawnin?
Yes.
Counselor Fucci?
Yes.
Counselor Wentworth?
Yes.
Reappointment Ryan Van Wilgen, Agricultural Committee, term to expire 9/30/15.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councilor Wentworth, seconded by Deputy Mayor Rose. Roll call.
Mayor Candelora,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Rose,
Yes.
Counselor Angeloni,
Yes.
Counselor Caprio,
Yes.
Counselor Duty,
Yes.
Counselor Fawnin,
Yes.
Counselor Fuji,
Yes.
Counselor Wentworth.
Yes.
Item 12A, Murma Workers' Compensation Update.
Mayor, this is another interim report from our insurance carrier. What we've asked for is a little bit of a better breakdown of the types of injuries, not just for the council's benefit, but for the safety committee's benefit, so that we can look at the loss trend analysis and do some analysis on what are the root causes of the injuries, what departments are being most affected. Are there things that can be done for safety training? And unless you start to look at the type of injury and whether it's preventable or non-preventable. And unfortunately, we've had 3 insurance carriers now in the last 3 years, from Murma to Argonaut and now to Travelers, which is a more traditional insurance company who does produce these reports. So we're working on compiling it. This was done at my request by our insurance agent, but we're working on a more defined report that'll give us a little bit of a better breakdown. And again, we're not looking to violate any HIPAA rules. We're just looking for the big ticket items, where we have exposure. And you'll see some of those where the dollar figures start to add up with lost time. Salaries are being paid out, and although we're being reimbursed at 2/3, there's a cost for that 2/3 reimbursement, which someone might be out for 6 to 9 months with a shoulder injury or back injury or knee replacement or something of that kind. So we're working on getting some better detail, and this report happened to come in on the day after the last town council meeting, so I wanted to keep providing you with some updates. And it does also talk about some of our other exposures for liability in this report.
Richard, do we have annual safety meetings? Or do we have them?
We have we have quarterly safety meetings. We're in compliance with the workers' comp law. The safety committees are held both on our side and the Board of Education. They have their own safety meeting, and we have representatives on the safety committee from the various departments and the various unions. So we have rank and file and management people on the same committee, each with equal footing at the table. And that's what we're looking to provide, is better information for those meetings.
Okay.
So maybe, John, stop me if I become illegal, I guess, we can't find out the name of the employee, but can't we find out everything else? Can't we find out what they did and how they got hurt and how it was corrected, or? And again, Richard, and I hate to beat a dead horse, but when I look at 45 claims on the Board of Education side for $443,000 in 1 year, that's crazy. I can't imagine what happened over there. But is it safe to send our school kids there?
If you look at, with the numbers, if you look at the Board of Education, their frequency in the year prior to that,
Was
they-
46?
64 claims.
And 118.
I'm sorry, 2 years prior to that. So their frequency tends to be higher on the Board of Ed side because sheer number of employees.
And I take my hat off to them, they got it down to 14 somehow.
So far this year.
In 11, 12. But,
We're only 6
so
months
you're
into it.
you're gathering information that's gonna show us what type of injuries these
Yes.
were?
What categories of injuries and what the expense was associated with those injuries, whether it was lost time or not lost time. My sense on that year with the 45 injuries at $440,000, there was significant lost time involved with that, probably surgery and hospitalization. It only takes a couple of claims to bounce that number up into the hundreds of thousands. So we'll get that information for the next meeting.
And the other thing on these, numbers is that there's a lot of claims, or there's a number of claims that are reported, but not necessarily, there's nothing paid out on it. It's for reporting purposes only. So they might have, once we get that data, you can look at it, and they might have 20 or 25 where the employee reported it, but there's no lost time, there's no medical bills, but they report it in
Reported an
case
accident.
something, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But from the safety committee perspective, those are equally important
Right,
because
'cause they
that
have to-
frequency still goes against our loss rating at the end of the year. Even though there was no claim, they have to open a file and they're going to hold that against your loss rating. So we want to know about those to see if we can prevent those as well. And some of them are dumb accidents in a lot of these cases that can be prevented. And it's a culture that needs to be bred to prevent those injuries. And it has to come from the top down, bottom up, every place. So we're working on better information.
Is there any other questions? And there's no new news on Burma, right? Nothing to report on Burma?
No, nothing different than when we shared, we attended the annual meeting, and they're in closeout period, and our assessments are trending downward. So we'll get an up-to-date number for budgeting purposes, and we'll be in fairly good shape.
Item B, North Branford High School roof project.
I have no new information on the roof project. We are attempting, from the last council meeting, we have a number of bids that we're starting to put together. This is one of those, to do the architectural design services. There have been a few rainstorms in the interim, and the report is that the system that was installed for additional drainage is working perfectly, and we've had no additional, other than the small pinhole that I reported at the last meeting, there have been no additional leaks at the building. So I think we've temporarily accomplished something, and we're working towards getting those plans, the architect RFP done, so that we can have the project moving forward this coming year.
Okay. And we're going to work with the BOE on it. They'll make sure they're in the loop. Item C, charter revision.
Can we get copies of the minutes from the 2004 charter revision to see how many people were on it? So we can appoint approximately the same number.
There were 5 members on the Charter Revision Committee in 2004.
I thought there were 2 counselor, 1 counselor and 1 alternate.
Okay, hold on. This is 2004? You're right, Counselor Candelora and Counselor Gurton. It's down. I can send you the April meeting minutes from the town council. I think I may have done that previous. I can send you out a whole fresh package if you'd like for the next town council meeting. Sure.
I think in order to move forward, we really need that information to put together the committee.
And you have the town attorney's timeline as well.
Yes.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'll get you all the minutes we can find. And do you also need a copy of the charter itself, or as part of the package? I'll put everything
Yes.
in one
Yeah, yeah,
package
it
with
might
the
be a
minutes
good
and
idea.
repackage
Yeah.
everything. Okay.
We all have it.
New business discussion and action regarding item A, Montgomery Village bond issue.
Mayor, with your packets and council members, there was summary information that was provided. You had asked at the last meeting, after the presentation by Montgomery Village, Attorney Kantrovitz and company, you had asked for some additional information from our files, which included the site plan and included some photos of the walls in their current condition. I also received from Attorney Kantrovitz a summary that was very well done of all of the background information and their concerns that I included in your packet in total. And then there was a request for the original letter of credit that was issued by Webster Bank, and we also included a summary report that was prepared by Milone and McBroom regarding the condition of the walls that were subsequent to the construction of those walls. And that was done, I believe, in 2008 as well, in that time frame. So I believe you have all of the information that we could potentially provide, including, as I said, the up-to-date pictures that the building official and I took in our site visit. And to my knowledge, again, the first wall at the lower detention basin by Clintonville Road has been completely replaced and is in good functioning capability. The other walls, the other two walls at the upper detention basin appear to be functioning properly. There's a little bit of settlement along the back side of the wall itself that can be corrected fairly easily with some backfill along that wall. There's some large tree growth in the bottom of the detention basin that does not affect the integrity of the wall.
Yeah.
But they appear to be working normally.
That's not a retention pond down in there in the bottom, is it?
It has some retention. It's supposed to be a wet pond.
It had to be a detention pond.
Is the vegetation supposed to be taken care of or maintained or grow wild?
Otherwise it'll, just continue to go up large. Anything like that.
It doesn't seem like it's being maintained in these photos.
It's not. It doesn't appear to be maintained. There's a little bit of settlement down below it. The drainage structure that is the exiting of the water comes through a V-notched weir that's set about a foot or a foot and a half above the bottom of the detention basin. So it's going to stay wet for a good part of the year, and I think that's why there's a lot of vegetation growing. It hasn't been mowed, and probably a good part of the year is not mowed, so it probably makes it a little bit more difficult. We had a chance, the building official and I had a chance to walk parts of the site with Marie Diamond and Andy Campion from Montgomery Village and talk about some of the bond issues and some of the sequencing and what the town would be looking for relative to a bond and what we would not be looking for relative to a bond. And Kurt can probably tell you a little bit more about the details of the actual construction, but some of their issues have to do with sidewalk areas that are not in the public right-of-way, so they typically would not be part of our bonding package. They also have to do with some of the conditions of the trees that are in the wooded areas that were purposely left wooded, but do not affect anything, again, within our public right-of-way. They don't appear to be affecting the drainage or the detention basins in any significant way. They don't appear to be affecting the integrity of these retaining walls that we're looking at along the detention basin. And they typically would not be part of a bonding process that the town would engage in. So on those two issues, I know they do have concerns with the integrity of their sidewalks, but I'm not sure what, if anything, we would be doing about that relative to the bond.
As I understand it, the bone of contention really is the expiration of the letter of credit, which was posted as a bond. When the town attorney had issued a letter indicating the town would retain the letter of credit or bond until the dispute between the developer and the homeowners was resolved. I looked at these documents. The one thing that jumped out at me is this letter of credit is a little bit unusual because usually a letter of credit is for a specific period of time, such as a year, and it automatically renews at the end of that year unless the bank or the institution that issues it gives notice that they're going to terminate. I don't find a notice of termination in here. What I do find is the letter of credit had an additional provision that said, notwithstanding anything in here to the contrary, this letter of credit will expire in March of 2008. And then there was a subsequent letter from the bank saying they were extending that to March of 2009, so that the absolute expiration date of the letter of credit was March 2009. That's, I think, a little bit unusual to put that provision in there, but the bank did that. What the town attorney's letter says, and what Richard signed off on, was an agreement that the town would not relinquish the letter of credit until the dispute was resolved. What I don't see in here is anything whereby the town gave back the letter of credit to the bank and said, we're releasing it, there's no further possible claims, you're exonerated, go away and go about your business. I think a little bit of what has happened here is the slightly unusual nature of the letter of credit, coupled with the fact that there was an ongoing dispute between the developer and the property owners, and the town, whomever, building inspector, Carol, I'm not sure who, not really being aware that the letter was going to expire on its own accord, but not taking any overt action to actually surrender the letter of credit. So there's some confusion as to who was responsible for doing or not doing something. And I think that's the nexus of what the dispute is here. Now, before the meeting tonight, I talked to Attorney Kantrovitz, who told me that he believes there was another letter from the bank where they expressly stated that the letter was expiring and they were not renewing it. That I don't see in the package of documents I got. And, I mean, it's an unfortunate situation, but I don't know that the town can take on the responsibility of reviewing every letter of credit or bond and satisfying the property owner that the bond has either been met or not met, or has some unique provision in it, such as it does here. It's a public document that anybody can review. I don't know that the town can take that additional step to review it and give its interpretation of what the bond provides to the property owner. So unless there's something else from the bank, I think it's an unfortunate situation, but I just don't see where the town is responsible for the expiration of that letter of credit.
I believe what we have provided the council with was all of the pertinent documents. If Attorney Kantrovitz has a copy of something or can
He didn't have anything else with him tonight, I don't think.
can point us in the right direction, I'd be happy to do further research for whatever it takes to find that document. But my recollection was that there was a drop dead date of 2009 and there was no further correspondence on that.
That's what is in the documentation you provided to us last week.
But I'd be happy to look again in case we missed something. I understand the complexity of it. Would you like me to take another shot at that and then report back to the council at the next
That would be good.
meeting?
Well, in fairness, if it exists, we ought to, it's a public document, we ought to make it public.
I will,
Yeah.
I will send it to all members of the council if we could find it, and I'll be in contact with Attorney Kantrowitz and the town attorney.
Thank you. Item B, Reed's Gap Road East over Farm River Bridge, number 098002.
Briefly, this is just really a reauthorization, or reissuance of a motion authorizing the town manager to enter into a project grant agreement with the state of Connecticut under the local bridge program for Reed's Gap Road Bridge. This was approved back in 2010. The state was sort of in a flux about funds. They said they would provide us the money. They had to come. I think they had a bond for it, they hadn't yet done it. The money, they recently authorized the funds in 2011. They're requiring us to sort of reauthorize the motion and in order to go into this, the new agreement dated December 15, 2011. With the state, it's the same agreement as was previously approved. We're just redoing what we did once before because of the state process. It is a suggested motion on the second page as well.
I'll make,
Work's all been done, and really at this point, we're looking, once this is all finalized, we're looking for reimbursement.
I can make that motion now, therefore, be it hereby resolved that Richard Brannigan, Town Manager, Town of North Branford, is authorized to sign the agreement, project grant agreement between the State of Connecticut and the Town of North Branford under the local bridge program for Reed's Gap Road East over Farm River Bridge number 098002.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Duty, seconded by Councilor Wentworth. Roll call.
Mayor Candelora.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Rose.
Yes.
Councilor Angeloni.
Yes.
Councilor Caprio.
Yes.
Councilor Duty.
Yes.
Councilor Fawnin.
Yes.
Councilor Fuji.
Yes.
Councilor Wentworth.
Yes.
Item C, Finance Subcommittee draft agenda for January 11th, 2012.
We've also attached the schedule of meetings because I believe that was deferred.
It's in the folder.
Right, it's back in November, so if it's within your pleasure to do so, if you could approve that. And this meeting for next Wednesday would then be a special meeting because of the notice to the town clerk.
Make a motion to approve the list of meetings for the Finance Subcommittee.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Wentworth, seconded by Councilor
I
Fucy.
just have a question. In regards to December, because at our November meeting, we only have one meeting in December, we changed to December 11th, so we would never have enough time to post the agenda for the December 12th meeting that's listed on here.
And you've canceled those.
So just cancel them as they come
Well,
along.
the last couple of years, you canceled the finance subcommittee in December, so if you want to scratch that.
When do you want to do it?
I would like to amend the proposed meeting agenda to eliminate the December 12th, 2012 meeting.
Right. Like how many people serve on it?
All right, I'll second.
I'm sorry, is that moved by you still? Seconded?
Second by.
Moved by Councilor Angeloni, seconded by Councilor Fawnin. Roll call.
Mayor Candelora.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Rose.
Yes.
Councilor Angeloni.
Yes.
Councilor Caprio.
Yes.
Councilor Duty.
Yes.
Councilor Fawnin.
Yes.
Councilor Fuji.
Yes.
Councilor Wentworth.
Yes.
14, citizen statements and petitions.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Deputy Mayor, members of the council, Mr. Brannigan, Attorney Jasmine. My name's Howard Kantrowitz. I'm a member of the Board of Directors of Montgomery Village Condominium Association. I'm an attorney. As you know, I wrote the letter requesting, excuse me, that the town step into the shoes of the holder of the bond, Webster Bank. And I don't disagree with Councilman Thornton's statement that it's not the town's fault that the bond was canceled. It isn't. The bank canceled it. There's really nothing the town could have done about it, except for one thing. Tell us. We were told the first time that I visited Carol Zebb to talk about the bond, I was told that the letter of credit had a 90-day cancellation provision in it, requiring the bank to give notice to the town 90 days prior to cancellation. The reason for that, obviously, was to give the town time to call the bond before it was canceled. The only thing the town did wrong was never to give us notice that that bond was going to terminate. Now, whether or not the 90-day provision still applied, and Joe and I had a discussion about it, I'm not sure, but it really doesn't make any difference. Once there was a drop-dead date, somebody just should have told us. I mean, when a town official says to you, don't worry, we're not going to let that expire without telling you, and then nobody tells you, and then you find out that the bond is gone, seems to me that is between us and the town did something, or the town was in a position to save the situation, if you will, and didn't do anything about it. And so what we're asking is that because the town failed to do something that I think it had an obligation to do, that the town step into the shoes of the bank and take on the obligation of whatever needs to be done under the performance bond. I think that citizens have a right to trust in their public officials. And I think when public officials fail to meet their obligation to citizens, that the town needs to step in and make it right. I don't think anybody on the council probably would argue with that. And I think this is one of those cases. So I would ask you to give careful consideration to what happened here. The town didn't cancel the bond. The town failed to give us notice, and they had promised they would do so. You're right, Joe, I guess it's a public document, but when somebody says to you, don't worry about it, we're going to let you know, I don't run down to the land office every couple months to make sure the letter's still there. That's what happened, and I think it would be unfair to leave the citizens of Montgomery Village unprotected. When they had protection, they were told that before that protection went away, they would be notified, and they were never notified. And I mean, frankly, somebody should have made a little X on the calendar that said, notify Montgomery Village that this bond's going to expire in 3 months, 6 months, whatever. Nobody did it. That's clearly what should have been done. So I would ask the council to give our request careful thought and favorable consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we
I have
find
a
out,
question.
Richard, when the town was notified of this? Because I don't ever remember this coming up on the council floor.
It wouldn't come to the town council. This is a planning and
No, it's a
zoning
P&Z, but
issue. And
to Joanne, what she's saying, and I just wonder, what would be the protocol when a bank says they're going to pull a bond? Wouldn't somebody from the town go out and inspect to make sure there's no issues with the bond? I mean,
Whether it work.
What's the usual procedure?
I mean,
it
because
seems
how could you let
ludicrous that
allow
we
them to
don't
pull a
know.
bond without knowing if the project's completed to satisfaction? It seems like there was something that wasn't done right here.
This wasn't customary set of circumstances. What Attorney Kantrowitz is referring to is a 90-day notice at the bank. This letter of credit is drafted like a normal developer's letter of credit that they present to towns all the time. And it says, if the town submits a statement and says the developer did not comply with the approved plan of development, and it's signed by a town official, we'll pay up to X dollars on receipt of the bank's, or the town's demand for that money, alleging that there's been a violation of the approved plan. And then it usually says this letter of credit is good for a specific period of time, and that period of time is usually a year. It then says this letter of credit will automatically renew for additional periods of 1 year unless there's a 90-day notice telling you we're not going to renew.
Right.
That's the triggering mechanism that you're talking about, whereby somebody should go take a look and see if there's a problem. This letter of credit, unfortunately, had an additional clause that said, under any circumstance whatsoever, this letter of credit is going to expire in March 2008, which was 3 or 4 years after it was issued. Shortly before March 08 came along, the bank issued another letter saying, we're going to change that date to March 09. So without really mincing words, I think there's an argument whether or not they changed the terms of the letter of credit, and there's still a bona fide letter of credit that they never gave 90 days notice of termination of. But put that aside, because that's exceedingly technical for purposes of this discussion. It gets us nowhere. What we have here, though, and what I understood from the last meeting, was that the town issued a letter on the stationery of the town attorney that said, we will not relinquish the letter of credit before you settle your dispute with the developer. And it was signed by the town attorney, it was signed by Richard. So happens I took the liberty of calling the former town attorney this morning to discuss that with him. He had a very vague recollection of it, so he couldn't really add too much to it, other than that he and Richard did discuss it, and he did indeed sign it, and Richard signed it. Well, there never was a 90-day notice, as far as I know, from Webster Bank. They just let March 09 come and go, and now presumably they would take the position the letter of credit has expired. We had issued a letter saying we would give notice if we were going to relinquish the letter of credit, which is something you would do as part of making a demand on it. You'd say, this is a $350,000 letter of credit, here it is. They defaulted under their site plan, give us the $350,000. And you surrender the letter of credit. And we didn't do that, nor did we give it up and say, there's no more possibility of a claim under this letter of credit, so we're giving it back to you. And the developer is exonerated from any claim under this letter of credit. We didn't do that either.
Right.
It's probably still sitting in a P&Z file someplace. But under the terms of the letter of credit, I'm sure the bank would take the position that it expired. Now, Attorney Kantrowitz's position is a little bit different tonight. He's telling us that he got a verbal representation from Carol Zepp, which I didn't hear before. I was looking at that letter from Tim Yolen. You have to really question, does the zoning administrator have the ability to bind the town to a $350,000 obligation on her say-so? And that one I find really troubling. So unless there's more documentation that I'm missing, I just have a problem with the town taking on a responsibility for what was Webster Bank's responsibility at one time, and the developers before that.
Right.
Sure. All right, please.
We're still in citizens' statement, anyway.
I think, Joe, Number one, remember that Planning and Zoning Commission, Carol's planning office, zoning office, knew about the dispute with the walls.
How are you?
It was, we came to the commission, it was all laid out before the commission, and they knew about it. Also, remember, there was what prompted Attorney Yolen's letter, signed off on by Mr. Brannigan, was a letter that I had written, was an agreement, a letter agreement between myself and between Montgomery Village and the developer, okay? So there was an agreement which the developer said, yeah, we got to fix the walls are screwed up, we're going to fix them, okay? And when it didn't happen, we reported that it didn't happen. So, I mean, the town had knowledge of this entire situation. Now, the notice comes in, and it says drop dead date, March 2009. Seems to me, given Tim's letter, given the oral representations that, hey, when we get notice, we'll let you know so that you can file any claims, it seems to me that the town obligated itself to notify us. That's all they had to do. I mean, it's not hard. You make a little mark on the calendar. You write notify Montgomery Village, okay? All the lawyers in the room do that every day. I don't understand why it wasn't done. It was, I'm sure, just an accidental oversight, but the theory in the law called promissory estoppel says if somebody tells you something and they're in a position where you have a right to rely on it, and the nature of what they're saying is such that you can rely on it, and you do so to your detriment, then they got to pay for the damages. And that's exactly what we have here. And I would hope that you can all see the wrongness of the situation, and the fact that between us and the town, we are essentially an innocent victim. I mean, what we could have done, we were sitting there waiting for no notice. We had no reason to think the town wouldn't notify us. We trusted the town. I don't think anybody's going to tell me we shouldn't trust the town. I think,
What about your own attorney, though, for your Montgomery Village? Shouldn't have they known about this drop dead date?
How would I know?
You're the attorney for Montgomery Village?
How would I know?
Well, who was involved in this whole deal with the bond and everything?
Well, the bond is negotiated by the town.
Right,
It's
but I'm
between
sure
the
you're-
town and the bank.
You had to be in on it. I mean,
No,
you
sir,
know what
I
was
had
going on.
absolutely nothing to do about it. I didn't even know what was going on. I had absolutely no
That's just
knowledge of it
between the
whatsoever.
builder and the town is what you're saying.
Nobody notified me, okay? And I had no knowledge of the fact that the bank said March, whatever, 2009 is going to be a drop-dead date.
Now, the bank wouldn't send it to the Montgomery Village attorney?
No, sir, the bond is an agreement between the bank and the town.
Even though it was your...
We are what we call a third-party
Yeah,
beneficiary.
there's no CCs on those letters.
We had no knowledge of it. I wish we did. If we did, we would have filed the claims. I mean, the only reason that we didn't file the claim is we were, we were hoping the developer was going to take care of it.
How long, yeah, well, obviously you went out of business and...
Yeah, well, the background is that late in 2010, I called Joan Malloy, who's the developer's lawyer, and she confessed to me at that point and said, Howard, I got to tell you, they're not going to do it, they can't do it, forget about it. And so that's when I sent a letter to the town and said, hey, they can't do it. We want to request that you call the bond.
When did you have trouble with the walls in the beginning?
Pardon?
When did trouble with the walls start?
Well, probably it probably started immediately, but it came to our attention. I'm trying to remember that we signed a letter with the developer in 2008, where the developer agreed that the walls were not.
What I'm trying to get at is when did everyone find out that these walls were no good?
I think one wall collapsed up there, right?
Yeah.
The initial wall collapsed, then one wall collapsed, or they took one down?
Bulged. We had a bulge.
Yeah. One wall bulged out, and then they had to take it down and...
The lower wall,
Well, that's, the thing is, you still need to know when this whole ordeal started.
the walls probably, it became noticeable that the walls were failing when that bulge occurred, which was probably in 2006. And they came in and they did a partial reconstruction, okay? That's kind of when we started to realize that the wall was not properly constructed,
Right.
period.
You didn't continue to go after it after that?
Oh, sure we did. Oh, sure we did. It resulted in a letter agreement between us and the developer that said, we're going to fix it. And in fact, they did take down the lower wall. They completely deconstructed it and rebuilt it in accordance with the specifications. It was not built in accordance with the specifications. And they rebuilt it with a permit. That's another thing. I mean, these walls require permits.
So this has been an ongoing problem since 2006, is what
Absolutely.
you're saying?
Absolutely. Okay? And the town has been aware of it. I can't tell you the first date we went to the commission, to the Planning and Zoning Commission, but I'm going to say it was in 2006. So everybody's been aware of it since 2006. But we weren't told that the developer wasn't going to do it until the end of 2010.
Right, so you had issues with the developer, and they weren't continuing to fix the walls, is what you're saying?
As I said, they did repair one wall. Well, they were supposed to clean it, and that was never done. And they did nothing with the other wall.
Mr. Mayor, excuse me, can I bring this into focus just a bit? Because, and I understand Attorney Kantrovitz's concern and frustration with we as public officials, but what I'm trying to grasp and understand is what is the detriment, and maybe if you could explain what the detriment to Montgomery Village is at this present time. And I say that because the first wall that was damaged was deconstructed and found to be defective and completely replaced to the satisfaction of our building.
It's not completely replaced.
Well,
That's not
the
correct.
affected areas were repaired and replaced to what appears to be everyone's satisfaction.
The agreement wasn't. They asked if they could reuse the blocks.
Okay.
We agreed, said, you can reuse them if you clean them, because they really look awful. If you look at other block walls, you'll know right away that there's something wrong with that wall. And they were supposed to clean it. It's never been cleaned. And we're not satisfied with it. You shouldn't be satisfied with it. And it needs to be cleaned. The other wall, but what we agreed to do on the other wall, by the way, which didn't show obvious signs that it wasn't built correctly, was to deconstruct a small piece of it. I think we said a 10-foot piece, so that we could see whether or not was properly constructed. And they agreed to do that. And the deal was that if there was any question about it, my recollection is that the state building inspector was going to come up and he was going to be the referee. And he signed off on the letter agreement between Montgomery Village and the developer. So that's never been done. We have no idea whether that wall is built in accordance with specifications that are on file.
But there was a report done, and I'm not being argumentative.
No, I know.
Just trying to provide information to...
Malone and McBroom.
Malone McBroom, one of the better landscape and design professionals around the area, did a report, and I've provided that report to the council.
Right, the second and third
that
walls
looked
were
at
built
those second and
correctly. That's what that
third
report
walls
said.
as meeting professional, and please, council, let me finish. And I say that because absent an inspection from the building official, if we were to look for a bond release or a recommendation to come from the town engineer to the Planning and Zoning Commission on a normal subdivision or a normal development process, and we had a report such as this from an engineering firm like Malone and McBroom or any other professional engineer, we would give great, if not total credence to this report, saying we're not going to hold any bond up based on this report that we have on this particular issue. The other question I would have relative to the bonds, and I don't know the details of how the bond was developed to determine the value of that letter of credit, but some, as I said earlier, some of those other issues that Montgomery Village has with the developer were issues that were not necessarily covered by a bond that the town would hold, because those development pieces were not part of, they were more landscape design, more site design. They were not integral to the health, welfare, and safety of the inhabitants of the project. That is more often the case when a bond is done, such as having an intersection improvement or a traffic light or sidewalks within the public right-of-way, detention basins, downstream, impacts of flooding and so forth. So I think there's a little bit of confusion, and I turn it back to Councilor Kantrowitz to determine what is it that was the detriment to Montgomery Village that you're looking for this town council to step in the place of the developer.
First of all, let me say that the engineering report is fine. It was not commissioned by the town, it was commissioned by the developer. Secondly, all the report says is, it looks fine. It looks right, it looks okay. Okay? You can't issue a code. The building official issued a certificate of code compliance based on that report. And I insisted that he withdraw it, and he did. Because you can't issue a certificate of compliance saying that something was constructed in accordance with the plans and specifications. They have no idea. They're just saying, hey, it looks okay. Well, I don't know if it's okay or not. I have no idea. But you know what? We're entitled to know that it's okay. We're entitled to know that it was built in accordance with the plans and specifications. And I think we agreed to a reasonable method for determining that. We didn't say, well, since you can't document that you did it right, you got to rip the whole thing down and start all over again. We said, okay, let's take a little piece of it and let's check it out. So what's to our detriment is the wall wasn't clean, the lower wall wasn't clean. The segment of the upper walls were not taken out so that we could determine that it was built to plans and specifications. And with respect to the other matters that I raised, Mr. Bradigan, my position is I've got to go back, frankly, and look at the minutes of planning and zoning meetings at which I think the commission essentially defined what the bond would cover. I believe there are minutes, I think, in 2 meetings, if I recall. And after which, then you might be right, and maybe there's an argument that you're not. But the first issue is there a bond or isn't there a bond? If there is a bond, that's fine. Clearly, the walls come within the purview of that bond. Whether the other items come in within the purview of that bond is up for discussion, and as I said, I would have to review those minutes.
Counselor, I'm going to cut you short. I think we need to, Richard, you're going to look and see if that you can find that letter.
I'll look for the letter. We'll pull out the minutes of the meetings. I'll be happy to let you know when we do that.
Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you.
Can't talk. After listening to that, I can't talk.
We found a solution for that.
Come back every meeting.
Any other citizen statements?
All right. Are there any other citizen statements? Okay.
I have one. No, I have a citizen statement. Unfortunately, a couple weeks ago, my family needed the services of our emergency personnel. And you can sit here and look at budgets and you can, wonder, how things are going. But I will say this, you know, it's great to know that they're there when you need them. It's, they come in, they're professional, they're courteous, they're knowledgeable, and they get the job done. And so from my family to our fire and rescue services, you know, we get a big thank you.
So we adjourn to a non-meeting.
We have a non-meeting on the agenda, which simply means that it's not a public meeting. So adjourn this meeting
Okay.
and ask that the room be vacated, or we can go to another room and just have a...
We take a 5-minute break,
Could
probably.
I have a motion for adjournment?
So move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Counselor Wentworth, seconded by Counselor Angeloni. Roll call?
Mayor Candelora.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Rowland.
Yes.
Councilman Angeloni.
Yes.
Councilor Caprio.
Yes.
Councilor Duty.
Yes.
Councilor Fawnin.
Yes.
Councilor Councilor Wentworth.
Yes.
Town North Branford.